Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating: how constructed narratives, from classified military bases to ancient poetry, all the way to towering city skylines, completely shape the reality we live in. We are constantly surrounded by stories, but we rarely stop to actually examine the mechanics of how those stories are built, translated, or lived. So today, we're pulling back the curtain.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll be covering three distinct threads. Number 1, secrets and cover stories. Number 2, translating ancient myths. And number 3, the city of dreams. Let's get into it. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, secrets and cover stories, the manufactured narrative. Let's see how the US government actively uses stories to hide the truth. When intelligence agencies slap a top secret label on a program, they aren't just locking files in some dusty basement. They are engaging in aggressive narrative control. The very existence of a project has to be completely hidden from adversaries to prevent grave harm to national security. To operate with that kind of plausible deniability, you literally have to engineer the story. Think about it. If you create a weapon that gives you a massive advantage, you can't even confirm or deny it exists without instantly giving up your element of surprise.
The classification process itself is simple but incredibly strict. It starts at confidential, which could cause some problems if leaked, escalates to secret, and peaks at top secret. This whole tier system is basically a giant mechanism of narrative control. It's designed to ensure the public fundamentally doesn't know the truth, which protects military advantages and shields operations from outside scrutiny.
But here is the truly wild part. Despite this extreme reliance on secrecy, look at the sheer scale of this operation. It's estimated that more than 1 million individuals currently have the security clearance to view top secret information in the United States. 1 million people. That's a massive amount of individuals working within a hidden narrative across 18 different agencies. Maintaining a secret among 1 million people, that requires an incredibly strong, perfectly manufactured story. And honestly, nowhere is this more obvious than at the most famous secret base in the world, Area 51. Nestled out there in a remote Nevada lakebed, this facility was actually created in the 1950s by the CIA specifically to test cutting-edge aerospace tech, like the U-2 spy plane, completely away from the prying eyes of Soviet spies. But then, in 1989, a guy named Bob Lazar publicly claimed he was reverse engineering flying saucers at a complex out there. And just like that, the real history of Cold War aviation was totally overshadowed by tales of extraterrestrials. Which brilliantly brings us to the ultimate cover story. As this quote from Morgan highlights, experts believe the government actually embraces and frankly adores these alien conspiracy theories. Why? Because if the public is obsessed with looking for little green men, we're completely distracted from the very real, cutting-edge military testing happening right in front of our faces. Sometimes the absolute best way to handle super secrecy is just to hide it inside a much more entertaining narrative. Okay, moving on to Section 2, translating ancient myths, the translated narrative. We're pivoting from the intentional cover stories of the Nevada desert to a story that's been organically changing for 3,000 years. Let's talk about Homer's Odyssey. Now, it's essential to remember that this massive 12,109-line poem isn't just a fantasy adventure filled with monsters. At its core, it's anchored by the Greek concept of nostos, or homecoming. It is a deeply emotional poem about a king named Odysseus trying to reclaim his home, his wife, and his very identity after a brutally long 20-year absence. Now, since most of us don't read ancient Greek, we rely entirely on the narratives constructed by translators. And recently, a massive internet debate erupted over Emily Wilson's 2017 translation of the poem. As the first woman to publish a complete English translation, she strips away the archaic, inflated grandeur of older versions and uses clear, fast-paced contemporary language. And she does all this while sticking to a super disciplined poetic structure of iambic pentameter, matching Homer line for line. Look closely at the opening lines side by side here. Robert Fagles, back in 1996, translated the Greek word polytropos as the man of twists and turns, which sounds highly heroic, right? Very grand. Wilson, on the other hand, simply calls him a complicated man. That modern, almost psychological choice immediately signals to us that Odysseus is a damaged, morally difficult survivor. He's a liar and a manipulator, not just the straightforward, shining warrior. We also see this shifting narrative when it comes to describing the people in Odysseus's household. While older male translators often softened the ancient Greek reality by using words like maids or servants, Wilson forcefully and accurately calls them slaves. By doing this, she totally refuses to hide the fact that Ithaca was a slaveholding society.
She makes the ancient world feel brutally alien and honest, rather than this romanticized heroic landscape.
Naturally, this caused a fierce online debate, and it's important we look at it impartially. One side argues that Wilson is simply removing the culturally added biases of past male translators who softened the brutality of the text. The other side worries she's pushing the poem too firmly into modern moral sensibilities, making an ancient text feel a bit too much like a contemporary critique on power and gender. But regardless of where you stand, both sides absolutely agree on one thing: the translator completely controls the narrative. Which brings us to a massive upcoming cultural event. Director Christopher Nolan is preparing to adapt this epic into a blockbuster film, reportedly leaning heavily on Wilson's translation. So we really have to ask ourselves, whose version of this narrative are we actually going to be watching? Is it Homer's, the centuries of past translators, or a distinctly modern, ethically alert interpretation?
Translating a poem to the big screen carries huge risks. If Nolan leans too heavily on modernizing the dialogue and the morality, his adaptation risks making these mythic figures sound exactly like us. It might strip away the beautifully strange, hierarchical, and violent reality of the Bronze Age, effectively turning it into a contemporary prestige TV drama where the actors just happen to be wearing armor. It's an incredibly delicate narrative balance to strike. Which brings us to Section 3, The City of Dreams, the Lived Narrative. We're transitioning now from top-secret cover-ups and translated poetry to a physical, tangible space built entirely by overlapping stories: New York City. The narrative of New York is way more than just a sequence of historical dates. It's a constant, ongoing rewriting of the city's code, from the Native American communities who first shaped the land, to the Dutch trading posts, and then the British rebrand to New York. Every single era overlaid a new draft. By the time the Statue of Liberty was dedicated in 1886, millions of arriving immigrants were literally layering their own cultures, cuisines, and languages onto the concrete, continually reconstructing what would become the ultimate symbol of human resilience. And the result of all that history? It is staggering. Get this. Today, an incredible 800 different languages are spoken across the streets of the city. Just that single number alone earns New York its well-deserved reputation as the ultimate global melting pot. It's a living, breathing testament to millions of overlapping stories happening simultaneously. Now, these millions of stories are packed into 5 distinct boroughs: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. But these aren't just lines on a map. They act as completely different genres or chapters in the overarching New York story. Every single neighborhood has its own unique personality, traditions, and rhythm that draws tens of millions of visitors into its narrative every single year.
And anchoring these boroughs are literal monuments to human ambition, from the welcoming torch of the Statue of Liberty to the breathtaking heights of the Empire State Building. And then, right in the middle of it all, lies Central Park, offering 840 acres of tranquil, sprawling green space. It provides a peaceful oasis smack in the center of the world's most chaotic, complex narrative.
Ultimately, it's this non-stop energy that defines the city. It's fueled by an unparalleled collision of global cuisine, whether you're grabbing a classic New York slice or sitting down for Korean BBQ. Mixed with the dazzle of Broadway theater, the massive economic engine of Wall Street, and the relentless ambition of its people. This lived narrative is undeniably what makes New York the capital of the world.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I think the connective tissue between these 3 vastly different topics really becomes clear. Our world is completely defined by narratives. Whether those stories are intentionally manufactured by intelligence agencies hiding out in the desert, carefully translated by modern scholars breathing new life into ancient texts, or physically built, layer by layer, by generations of immigrants in a bustling metropolis, the stories we tell construct the reality we live in.
I want to leave you with one final provocative question to chew on. Take a close look at the information you consume every single day. Look at the headlines you read, the movies you watch, the city streets you walk down, and ask yourself, what hidden story is secretly shaping the way you see the world right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the narrative.